I was put on this earth to help people grow. I didn't come from money. I had to cultivate the business, grow it. How do I get higher on the learning curve? And now with social media, what's so interesting is that I can give my knowledge, my struggles, my learning, and shorten the learning curve for some young man or woman out there.
Thank you for joining us on the Evolve Your Brand podcast. I'm your host, Olia Merkes. I am so excited. I'll get to that in just a second. I want to talk about the wonderful crew at Icon Industries. Without them, Evolve Your Brand doesn't happen. We don't get to have amazing guests. You're going to have to stay tuned for this. Shane ×3, because you love yourself so much, you went and got 2 other people with your name. Steven, I love you. You're a genius. We named the eel after you. I named the eel after you. The rest of the crew here, you're amazing. Without further ado, Ben Reinberg, CEO, Alliance Consolidated Group of Companies, LLC. I've been practicing, and I still couldn't do it.
The best way to do it is Alliance CGC. So it's
Alliance CGC.
Yeah. And I had to get used to that.
Okay.
Because we had all these companies, and years ago we're like, let's just have one umbrella company, our parent company, and we'll put them all in. And that's what we decided to do. And so we said, well, what do we name it? And so once we started looking for domains and stuff, we're like, everything's taken. We're like, Alliance Consolidated Group of Companies. That's it. AllianceCGC.com. That's it. And we're done.
Alliance CGC.
Yep.
You could have saved me. Folks, it takes a lot of preparation.
My staff, it's funny. Everyone starts getting lazy in life. Like, you start abbreviating things. Now they're just like, yeah, that's a CGC expense. We're trying, like, where's this expense coming from? So it becomes, everyone's shorting it. And so I always say Alliance because I founded the company. It's my brand. And so I say the word Alliance, but it's Alliance CGC.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it because I've been practicing for days and I still mess it up. So I just want you to know, no matter how much you practice, sometimes you just drop the ball.
It's a mouthful.
Own It podcast.
Yes.
You're also a podcast host. And You know what I found interesting in studying you? You've jumped into this space for only 2 years. Mm-hmm. And you jumped in the deep end. You went and got big time guests. We're talking offline about the podcast. Here's my question for you. You were just absolutely dropping fire. And I'm so excited for our subscribers and our audience. Take 1 to 2 nuggets away. You're doing so many different things, but you're a student in the marketing, branding, and advertising. I'm shocked at how much you're out there. It's a huge time investment. How come you keep doing it?
I love it. I enjoy it. I figured, I was put on this earth to help people grow and to make them better, especially in business and in life. And I didn't come from money. I had to cultivate the business, grow it. And there wasn't the internet back in the day, as you know. And so for me, I had to figure out, how do I get higher on the learning curve? And now with social media, what's so interesting is that I can give my knowledge, my struggles, my learning, and shorten the learning curve for some young man or woman out there. How great would that be? Especially in commercial real estate. It's a sophisticated game. It's complicated. I'm in the prime of my career. It takes years to get to a certain point. It's a lot of challenges going on. And so for me, I learned, Ali, that if I could help people and create value, what would that do? Well, it does a lot of things. Number one, it's something that I enjoy doing for me personally. So that's a selfish thing. But also for my leadership team, my company, my employees, it helps promote our brand. What do we do? How do we build wealth for families and individuals? How do we promote our services to build resources? How do we attract great employees so we could change their lives? I have a stat in my company that I'm extremely proud of. People are like, well, how many deals have you done? I look on social media and people are like, I own billions of dollars of real estate and everything else. I've done all that. That doesn't excite me. If you want a great stat, let's go back and look at how many kids that have worked at Alliance for almost 3 decades, okay? And I'm not talking kids, I'm talking their parents. And how many kids have we put through college that maybe first time in their family, who knows anything. We have hundreds. And that's a great step because we're doing the right things. And that's important. So I look at those little details. And with social media and being on podcasts and having my own podcast, it allows me a way to give back, but also gives me an opportunity to help the company and the brand. Because eventually my leadership team are going to be like, you know what, Ben, thanks it was great. You taught us wonderful. I think it's time for you to kind of let us run the show,
right,
which they're basically doing now. And you step out and you keep promoting our brand. We
right.
love what you're doing, but go to the pasture and do some other things, which I'm starting to do. And so for me, this space of social media, content building, podcasting, guest host, whatever, is a way not only to give back, but also to create that legacy I want for my team that works so hard on behalf of investors around the world that we have in our portfolio. So it has a lot of meaning to me. And so I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it. I enjoy educating the public or people that want to get in our business or want to get in any business or want to understand, because people always ask me, like, how do you deal with your personal self to become the person you became? Like, how does it form? And I say, well, I had to work on myself. I had to take a step back, look at my deficiencies, surround myself with talented people, get mentors and coaches, and say, okay, well, I'm gonna fix all my wounds. I'm gonna learn how to heal myself. I'm gonna learn how to regulate my emotions. I'm gonna learn how to deal with people from different generations, different backgrounds, different parts of the world, and become an expert at it. And to do that allows me to thrive in business. So I started learning and seeing, like, because I always want the competitive edge. So I'm like, how do I get that advantage? How do I become the best commercial real estate investor? How do I become the best boss? How do I become the best at raising capital? How at procuring debt? I want to be that guy. And so I had to figure out all these shortcuts to get there. And part of it was how I communicate and deal with people is going to change the trajectory of all those questions I have. The answers come naturally through these questions I kept asking myself. And so a lot of it stemmed of, I'm going to improve my communication. I'm going to improve my focus, my presence. I'm going to be more grateful. I'm going to really enjoy the moments when I'm with people. And I'm going to treat it like it's my last moment. And by doing that and having that mindset, it's changed my world because it's allowed me to build deeper roots and better relationships with people. And so what that does is it opens the door for learning opportunities, money, revenue, and all different types of growth.
Ben, that's not, I think anybody that spends 5-10 minutes with you will realize that it's just the financial rewards are just a byproduct.
Oh, it's totally
of everything else.
It
like
is.
Your purpose, like you can't be around you and not feel your energy and vibe. I think that's what stood out the first time. There's very few people you meet, you shake their hand, you're like, whoa, I need to talk to that person for an extra. Can I get that for 15 minutes?
Right.
Like, are you surprised by the level of access? Some people that have achieved, huge accomplishments. If you just ask, I'm shocked at how people are willing to give.
Yeah, I think people that are icons in my business in commercial real estate, is their mentality and their demeanor taught me a lot. Because, and I say this a lot on social media, is some of my mentors, multi-billionaires, wildly successful, under the radar guys, you would never know. But the way they carried themselves and let their actions speak for their words was everything to me. I struggled to even think about getting on social media because people are like, well, you got to talk about your success and this and that. I'm like, well, that's not who I am. I'm from Chicago. I'm like, we're humble people. I'm like, that's not, like, I don't need to tell people how great I am and the deals I've done and the money I made. And to me, that's foolish.
Right.
And so, but they're like, no, people want it because they want to know who you are, but also to know, like, you're credible and that you're going to give them education, what they need to hear. And so I had to look at it differently. I'm like, okay, I get it. So my staff said, we want to build your brand and we want you to get on social media. And I said, what do you mean? I said, I'm on LinkedIn because Jeff Weyer's from Chicago, right? And, he started, he formed this incredible platform that all of us use now. It's phenomenal what he did to change our culture and business. I said, that's enough. I said, what else do you need besides LinkedIn? Like, no, everyone's doing business on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and people are communicating and they need to know you and you can add value because these are the platforms and Twitter, which is now X and all these different platforms. And I said, okay, why are we doing this? They said, because we want to promote the brand and we want to grow the business and we want to be able to create a legacy for you when you step out of the company. And that's what inspired me when I heard the word legacy. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting concept. So I sat back and thought about it. And next day I called the team that we were discussing this with. I said, all right, I'm in. And I said, okay. Now, when I say I'm in, what they know is they're like, Ben is in. Like he doesn't dick around. He sees a pool of water and he is taking a head and he's swimming. He's got his swimsuit on. He is swimming. He's going for it. So I said, all right, where are we starting? They're like, you're going to do a podcast. Podcast? I've never done a podcast where I don't even listen to them. I didn't know what a podcast was a couple of years ago.
No.
Yeah, I never listened to them, and then I started listening. I started listening to like Joe Rogan, who was like incredibly talented.
Holy moly.
He's the freaking mecca of them. I mean,
no argument there.
Right. I mean, he's incredibly talented. And I love Joe. I really do. I love him as an announcer. He's so talented. I think we're the same age. Love to meet him. And I started listening to our podcast. And I'm like, oh, there's different types of businesses and industries. And so I started looking at all this. I'm like, okay, this is cool. What are we talking about? And so we created, the I Own It show. And be like, oh, because you own commercial real estate. I said, no, you know what? It's owning every aspect of your life. It's success to significance. And so when you look at the guests, you're like, well, they're not, some are in business. I mean, everyone's in business in some way, but nothing to do with commercial real estate or real estate in general.
Yeah.
Some do, some don't. But the topics and the knowledge, because everything to me in business and life is holistic. If you have your health, and you have energy to go to work and add value and create value. And there was mindset people that came on of how you deal with your emotions. And we had a guy named Dr. Christian Conti who was on the show. Phenomenal guest. I just sat back and I was like blown away. We had another guy named Dr. Bruce Pompa come on the show, all about health. Wildly, I mean, all these people are so talented and so knowledgeable and brilliant. It's hard not to learn. And so when I found out about podcasts, I started listening to Joe and all these other great people out there. There's tons of them out there. I'm like, wow, this is really cool stuff. So basically the goal is you add value because that's what the good podcasts do. That's what Joe Rogan does. And so if you add value, it's rewarding, you create success, but also you can build your brand and also you could add value and create a legacy, especially for my employees and my leadership team. So I looked at it and I said, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I am jumping in. I'm going to do it. We're going to film a lot. We're going to do it. I'm going to commit to it. It's going to be a lot of time. I'm going to double down time. I'm going to figure out how to run the company and do this. And I've done it. And then we get better. We learn from our mistakes. We learn from, okay, well, I'm not going to shoot 5 in a week because it's exhausting.
Right.
So let's do 5 at one time. So I started learning more and more, and then we got into social media and Instagram and TikTok, and we've grown our following, and I've learned that if you give first, everything else takes care of itself, especially in social media and podcasting world. So here's the thing I do. I have some of the greatest guests that come on, okay? Especially with the new TV show, we got incredible guests. The first thing I ask—
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. And the first thing I ask them, okay, because everyone's, especially these bigger names, they're like, oh, he's going to ask me for something. I don't. I never do.
You're going to pitch them?
Yeah, no, something.
Okay.
That I want something from them.
Got it. Because I have you on.
Right. Because they're a big name. They know a lot of people.
Got it. Okay.
Successful. I don't care. I don't need them. Because
Right.
I'm like, because my approach is, so I always ask people and they love it because it flips the script on their mind. They can't believe it. I'm like, when Anthony Scaramucci came on, I said, so what can I do to help you? He's like, no one's ever asked me that. I'm like, well, maybe you're hanging around the wrong people. So I hear that a lot where people, I've had some huge Hollywood producers and directors and guys that buy shows and movies. And I'm like, what can I do to help you? Now, it's interesting. I had a guy named Larry Kasanoff, who is do you know Larry?
Okay. Yeah, through Greg Reed.
Yeah.
You had Greg Reed on. So.
I've had Greg Reed on, who's phenomenal. He's a dear friend of mine. So Larry came on the show. Now, Larry is wildly successful. He kind of does a little bit of what I do in raising equity, but he does it for movies. He's got a different product type.
Right.
And so what was fascinating to me was I said the same thing to Larry. And Larry actually took a lot of them taking me up on it. They always ask me like business questions. So Larry called me about a piece of commercial real estate for studios he has. And I spent 10 minutes with him. He's like, perfect, great, got the advice. I'm ready to roll. So I enjoy that because I become their thought leader for real estate or business or different situations where if I can take you out of your box and say, here's what I see going on and things you should consider, it helps them tremendously. So I've had Malik Wade on my show, who was incredibly talented guy. He's in real estate. He called me and said, I'm in the middle of a deal. Could you help me? And I do it for free. Okay. It's not like I'm not like, hey, Malik, that will cost you 250.
You're not doing the attorney thing?
Yeah, $250,000 of my time for the millions of dollars of advice. But I do it because I enjoy it. And you know what? It builds a relationship. Because I don't know, I might have to call Malik in his niche and say, Malik, I have a question. I'm getting involved in this side of the business. I know you've been in it for a while. And guess what? He'll pick up the phone and help me because I always lead first. And so when you're a guest on my show, I always will say, how can I help you? What's going on in your life? Because no one takes time to give a shit about anyone. So the fact that I'm going to take a step back with a high profile guest and say, what are you struggling with? Because no one wants to pull back the curtain and see the fat lady behind the curtain, or no one wants to see the elephant in the room of the guy struggling or the woman struggling somehow, and someone's willing to have a conversation. And because we just got off a podcast and they could be vulnerable, they're like, man, Ben Reinberg's really taking the time to care. And guess what? More resources, more opportunities. And it's the little things you do by taking time to give a shit about people go a long way. I say that to everyone at Alliance. I say that to people we do business with. If I say that to all the young kids that work at Alliance too, because say you're in acquisitions or you're raising equity. If you lead first with your intentions, you lose. You lost. That will always be, I don't care who you are, where you come from.
1,000%.
If you don't lead, like I'm here to listen to this person and help them, that's how you build the relationship. People say, well, how do you raise so much money, Ben? Because I take time to care about it. I basically listen to your challenges and I'm here to solve them. And if I can solve it, great, you're going to become an investor. If I can't, it's okay. But it's the same thing. So if I'm on a podcast with a guest and I'm the host, even if I'm a guest, same thing. I have the same mentality. How can I help you? And I do that a lot. There's guys out there that are like, I have capital. I'm looking to invest. I heard you have your new fund. I'm trying to figure out, I can't trust anyone. You seem reliable, dependable. You have a 30-year track record in what you do. Can we have a conversation? So I take that and we help them. And so there's always something someone struggles with. It's always like a relationship, or can I bounce an idea off you? And so we've had people on the show that are relationship experts that come on, and I'll call them. I'm like, yeah, I'm struggling with this person that works for me. What do you think? 2 seconds, they have an answer. How do you get access to these people and information? Here's the key. Here's the $1 million answer. Take time to care. Taking time to care will...
That would solve a lot of the challenges that we have right now, which is, okay, oh my goodness, I have the craziest story to share with you. I was at a parking lot at a 7-Eleven yesterday. This old gentleman, oh my goodness, Ben, I felt like shit. he fell, and I didn't notice that. I was on a phone call, and I was so in the moment. He literally, like 2 parking spots over, he fell on the ground, has a bag, he has a cane. People are driving by.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Driving by.
Yep.
1, 2. And I'm like, I ended my phone call. I'm like, I'm going to go. Let me go help him out. I didn't know whether he was homeless or not. It just looked like somebody that needed help. So I'm helping him up. I'm like, are you okay? Like, I felt terrible. And I'm like, if my kids would have been with me, they would have just seen all these people driving by. And what does this say about like our humanity, that we don't just stop for a second and holy shit.
Yeah.
That's what I have 3 boys. I'm like, instead of telling them what it takes to be a good man, how about I show them every day?
That's what they'll see. They see actions. They don't see words. Like I see it with my kids too. It's interesting. I had a mentor of mine years ago, and he said, I want you to carry around $500 in single bills, and $1 bills. I said, okay, what am I doing with this? And the lesson was, anytime you're out and you see someone on the street that needs help or homeless, I want you to give them some money. I'm like, okay. And so I am filming one of my podcasts in Laguna Beach at the studio we film out of when we do in person. And we just do virtual too out there. So in the garage I park at in Laguna Beach, there's not a lot of parking, but there's a parking garage I got in a spot. And I'm pulling out. And one of the ladies that used to work for me, old assistant of ours, and you can tell why she doesn't work for us. She's behind me. I'm pulling out of the garage. She's behind me. I stop. I almost block the garage. There's a homeless person, a lady, looks like she hasn't eaten in days. And I see her out of the corner of my eye, and I'm pulling out of the garage, and my lady behind me is behind me. And I get out. I give her like, I don't know, $7. I'm like, when's the last time you eaten? And she goes, probably been a week and a half. She goes, I don't even remember. I go, look, there's a Mexican place down the street. And I think I even gave her more. I started just giving her more because once I started here, I'm like, here, go there. They know me. Get whatever you want. Get yourself some food. It's literally quarter of a block. Just walk there so you have the energy. And she walked there and she got something to eat, and I watched her, and that was it. And the lady that worked for me, this is what really resonated with me. She goes, why'd you stop? What, because I had to get somewhere. She was more worried about she had to go somewhere instead of the moment of seeing someone that needed help and that I was showing her what you should do. And it resonated with me because I'm like, this is how people think. And so instead of saying, hey, I have the ability to help this lady who hasn't eaten. And because I unless I'm fasting, but I can't imagine like going a week and a half of not having the ability, not having a home, a shelter to live, a roof, and not having food to eat. So we take it for granted. So if you could help someone to change her life, who knows? She maybe got something to eat. Maybe it subsided her for another week.
That moment of kindness.
Yeah. And you know what? It comes back to you. And so I see these things and I see what goes on in our world and with people. And I saw that example with one of my former employees. And it shows me like people just, everything is what can someone do for me and everything. And if you flip, because people always ask me like, how do you build abundance? You do it because you give. You put other people first, and whether, your time's everything. Believe me, I'm a valuable time. Adriana, my assistant, schedules my time. But when I have that time, I'm going to maximize it and utilize it. And so part of that is giving back, helping people. And everyone, what's interesting is it provides me so much more in life by doing that. I attract money. I attract people. I attract investors. I attract opportunities. I attract a podcast invite. So that's what happens in life. And so I don't know. It's interesting because I get the questions I get are very similar. Like the root is always about, well, how are you adding value? That's always the root of everything, of the answers or the questions are asked of me. I'm like, well, how are you helping a person? How are you adding value? And just like I said when I was in the parking lot here having the conversation with my tenant, if that's what I'm leading with, guess what? I get the deal done. Builds revenue.
So you grew up, you talked about Chicago. It was Highland Park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference? How old are your kids?
Oldest is 24. I have a 24, 22, and my daughter tomorrow is graduating high school. Yes.
Congrats.
Yes. So
my first one is graduating high school on June 5th.
Okay. Same thing. So for me, it's a big moment because she's my only girl and she's going to be wildly successful. And she got into Cornell University. She wants to open, She wants to open bakeries. And, super smart. The reason why I talk about her, I don't like talking about my kids or putting them in the limelight or any of my family for security reasons. But the one thing I want to tell about this story about her that will inspire people is this was a young lady who moved from Chicago to California her second semester freshman year. Being a girl in high school is tough already.
Right.
So she moved to California, went to Dana Hills, and stepped in and is graduating. I think she's number 2 in her class. Okay. Just incredible resume. And I look at it and I say, how did she take a challenging situation of moving from Chicago, new environment? California is completely different than Chicago, especially Orange County. And I love Orange County and what it represents. And when we moved out here and she moved out here, she was thrown in water. And I feel the same experience of when I moved out here and with social media and podcast, I was thrown in the water too. And the fact that she could take a situation and rise at that level shows me how special she is. And it's a good lesson for everyone out there is that how she was able to look at this challenge of I'm moving to a new environment. Okay, different high school. I'm going to have to generate new friends and leave my friends behind in Chicago and develop a life and create the life I want out here. And to me, it's inspirational because that shows me its mindset. That shows me its drive, persistence, dependability, all these great qualities that she has. And I can claim she's my kid. But the lesson I've learned from her that's inspiring to me and for anyone out there is that take a challenge you have and look at it differently. Say, oh, not woe is me or it's going to be a problem. It's more like, how do I capitalize on the challenge to get through it? So when I look at her situation, it's like, okay, you're going from California to New York. How resilient is she to deal with an issue? How resilient to show the last 4 years she can get through something and thrive at a high level and then excel into her next life, into the #1 hospitality business school in the world.
Oh, really? Cornell is the #1.
Absolutely.
There you go. I was wondering where the connection. I'm like, so you're going to open up a bakery.
Yeah.
That makes
so
perfect sense.
Cornell, their business school is, their hospitality program is the #1. It's the most prestigious in the world.
Wow.
And the alumni. And so the networking. So you want to talk about leverage.
That's your kid.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that. Even if I didn't know her.
Right.
Like she was at the Rotary Club and I saw her speak and stuff. I saw a video of it. And I'm proud of her, and she should be really proud of herself, is because when you look at the mindset and the skills and the persistence and the discipline, to me, that's what I got from it.
Right.
I see everything that came out. Obviously, I love her to death and just unbelievable feelings towards her. But when I put that aside as her father and I see what she did, what she utilized, and what she developed out of this, I'm just like blown away. Because to me, that's what great employees can become. That's what great people in business or life can become, is through the skill set and the discipline that she showed over the last 4 years of her life. And so those are the lessons I take. So that's what I enjoy, is like, what did I learn from her experience And that's what is so beautiful about life is I could take her experience and say, okay, well, what did I gain from it? I gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of respect and a lot of appreciation of what discipline is. I'm disciplined, but that was incredible what I saw.
I mean, if you think about it, you're talking about 15 years old probably.
Yep.
When that happened.
Yep.
So like your world, your friends are your world. Yep. My oldest has a very, Ben, he has a more popular social life than I do. I'm like, son, I'm doing this for a business. Like you're always busy.
Yeah.
It's an incredible to think like cross country, Chicago, everything is different.
Yep.
And the mental fortitude, like of our next generation coming up. So let's talk about work ethic. You're very passionate about this. And one thing that I really, really respect and appreciate about your message is there are standards, there are results that have to be met. Everyone's got to get a job done, and you need to get your job done at a high level, high standards. Do you feel like our standards in business and the expectations that we have of companies and people on providing value and experience and actually genuinely caring about you, do you think that that's all going by the wayside and everyone's just a transaction now?
You know, it's interesting. With the internet, it seems like everyone's a widget in a transaction.
Okay.
And to differentiate yourself, you have to move away from that, what I've learned. And that's how I've always lived my life, because without the internet, that's how I learned business. So for me, I'm a big phone guy. I pick up the phone. A lot of people, you know, you talk to my kids and you talk to your kids. And if I called one of your kids, they'd be like, Uncle Ben, what the hell are you doing? I'm calling you because I want to have a conversation. I have an important question for you, right? And they look at it differently. But I think with standards, people just settle. You know, I did a speech and I said, you know, I like to live up here. You know, and everyone likes to be average. And it's true. Everyone, and a lot of it's just laziness or their mindset, like, well, this is how life should be. This is the cards I would dealt. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to create my own deck of cards of how I want to live life. I'm going to live by my rules. That's what I did in my career. I said, I'm going to design and create the life that I want. And that was important to me. And so I think people settle. I think people create standards where they feel they're not good enough, or this is kind of the ceiling, Ali, that I have to live my whole life and saying, no, you don't. I don't care where you're from. I don't care where your religion, your color, demographic, you know, and it's one thing I want to do. One of the things I want to do in my career is being from Chicago. One of my goals in the future is to take a young man or woman from a rough area, the south side of Chicago, and teach them commercial real estate and build a legacy for themselves. Because those kids in those environments, in these rough areas, gang infested, most homicides in the world in Chicago in these areas, no one teaches or explains to them, like, you don't have to live like this. That's just the environment you're in. That's what you're taught. That's how life looks like every day. But there's other ways to live. But no one wants to establish it or teach it or talk about it. And so what ends up happening is we learn at a young age, it's like, you got to stand in line. You got to be this person. You got to, this is who you are. Go get a job, get a salary. I didn't want to become that person. So I'm different in that regards. No, some people are paycheck people. I respect that. That's great.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with it. But there's also people that want the mindset of not having a ceiling, want to grow, want to learn different things. That's a different type of person. And so the standards you set for yourself come from you. They come from you. And that's what I love about my podcast, I Own It, is because you own everything in your life. You create your own success. You create your own failures. You create your own behavior. You're responsible for your life. And everyone wants to blame, you know, we call it the Ben theory in my company.
Okay. Tell me about the Ben theory.
It's a running joke. If something goes wrong, it's Ben's fault.
Okay.
Instead of you owning it. Because because human nature is, I am going to place the blame on someone else, that someone else effed up and it's someone else's fault. So we call it the Ben theory. And so what's interesting about that is I challenge anyone out there that's listening or watching this is, when life is tough or things aren't going right or a deal didn't work out, Start with yourself and say, what could happen? What could I have done better? I've gone through deals, recent, past, employees, and instead of saying, oh, well, that kid's a schmuck or didn't work hard or doesn't appreciate it, I'm like, wait a minute. What did I do that created this space? Maybe I didn't train them well enough. Maybe I didn't communicate well enough with the person. You create your events. And we lose sight of that. And most people don't even understand that. So when I create a space where there's great energy in the room or vulnerability can happen, just like on the podcast we touched on, it changes the trajectory of the situation. So I am always quizzing and testing myself saying, well, I didn't handle that right. Or I could have done that. We're responsible. Okay, we create our emotions from the lack of responsibility that we have in situations. I see that in deals. I see it with employees. Right. So I work on awareness for myself. And people always say, like, why'd you get into meditation? Because I meditate twice a day.
Okay.
I do it religiously. Did it before I got here and everything, because it helps me become that awareness to say, how do I create a better situation here? How do I create it where the person feels empowered to make their own decision or become better? And I've seen that. I've seen with employees that have come and gone. I've seen employees we've fired and stuff. And it could be we made a bad decision. It could be didn't onboard them well, not train them well. There's part of responsibility that we have to own in ourselves for every situation. It doesn't matter. What could I have done differently? What can I learn from this situation? I always say to my staff, employees, and colleagues, what did we learn? What did we learn from this? Right? Because that's the value. That's the gold.
That's everything.
Right. What did we learn from this thing?
Your culture, see, Ben, I would love to come one day. We'll bring a camera crew. I would love to see the culture in your company, because I would say with that type of leadership, like, you have that open door where it's not the mistake that matters. It's what did you learn, and then how are we going to make it better?
Right.
And then bring more value, improve the experience. Everything you talk about as others. It's amazing. I love it.
It has. Well, I'll tell you something we implement in our company, which not a lot of people do, is we have a chief people officer.
Yes.
And so
no way.
So what we did was we decided and said, years ago, I saw high performers leaving companies all throughout the world.
Oh, got it.
I said, all right, we got an issue here. Why is this happening? It's because companies didn't understand people's personal values and how it tied to the company's values and where the companies were going. Wow. It wasn't about money.
Wow.
It was about what they wanted out of their life. So we hired an expert, a people expert, and she has a company that I'm involved with. It's called Designing Genius. And what Designing Genius does is it's software that allows you to understand your employees, what they want. So everyone gets a playbook, and you do it online. It takes about 50 minutes. And I do it on myself. I do it usually like once a quarter. And we update it for our employees. And what it does is allows you on a personal, a career, and a future level what the employee wants. So to give you a general scope of our company, all the employees want health and wellness. So we incorporate that. From a career standpoint, everyone wants to be mentored and coached. Why do that? And other people we bring in do that, or leaders do that as well. And the third thing is investments, which we're an investment company. So we're teaching investments every day to people. So we're hitting those three items. But what's interesting is we hold you accountable. So when we meet with our leaders, and our leaders meet with their employees and their departments, we meet with a leader. They'll say, well, Ben, in my playbook, I said I want to work out 4 days a week. I only worked out 2. Okay, what happened? I want to get great sleep. I want to sleep X amount of time and get quality sleep. Okay, it didn't happen. So what happened? I want to eat healthy. It didn't. So it ties to their performance. When they have certain key performance indicators in a department. So we had an acquisition guy in a department, and for like a week, he normally hits his number. He didn't hit his number. Okay. and say his number is 250 calls in a week and he made like 180. And we're like, okay, what happened to you? It's not like you. Well, I haven't been sleeping. Okay. So we go deeper. Why? And we said, well, I'm scrolling through Instagram and you got to stop doing that. Put it away, put it 20 feet, 30 yards, however away, plug it in away from your bed. So he tried it and he said, I'd like to start journaling. I said, okay, do me a favor. Take 5 minutes out, start dumping everything in your head on a piece of paper, then go to bed. He started sleeping better. Next week, numbers go up to where they were. Simple. So we're able to have great conversations with employees that engage with them to show we care by saying what's going on that we can help you with. Now, with labor laws, especially in California, everyone's worried about having those conversations. But they're necessary because your personal life and your business life flow into each other, and vice versa. Your business flows into your personal life.
I was going to ask you, are you a firm believer in how you do one thing is how you do everything?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We always look at how someone does the details is everything in life.
Right.
And we'll learn that in an interview or if we're testing someone or whatever. But at the end of the day, the playbook tells everything. It tells you if you're honest. It tells you if you're going to be a good fit. And so what ends up happening in our community, our corporate, some people use the word culture, we use community because we're a community, is if you're not growth minded and you're not on the train, the community will suck you out naturally.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting because our employees will end up naturally firing themselves at some point. They do. Because if you're not growth minded or you're not on the train to where we want to go in our mission, you'll just get sucked out.
And anyone like Ben, getting to know you in just this short period of time, first, thank you so much. Like, I think there is going to be so much value that you brought to the audience because I was excited about you being a serial entrepreneur. Like, what are the challenges and journeys you've gone through? What is your mental state? Like, how do you live every single day? Because you have an intensity. You're a student in the like branding and marketing and advertising. It's all new to you, but you're embracing it. I said you jumped in the deep ocean. You didn't go after like, hey, I'm going to get my friends on here. You're like, I'm going to go, who are the best in their space and let's go get them.
Right.
And it really does elevate, I heard you talk to Neil, and this is what stood out to me. I want to end on this, which was like, thank you.
Right.
Like, genuinely thank you for putting out the content that you're putting out there, for sharing your knowledge, what's helped you achieve, whatever your version of success is, and being able to share that and want to make a difference in other people's lives, the communities, because the solutions are us. Like, the government isn't going to fix anything.
No, we have to solve it.
Yeah, we have to solve it. Like, I'm sorry to say, that's not being pessimistic. I'm just being a realist. Like, what's changing? The only change I see is people that are saying, I'm not waiting anymore. Like, I'll just see if I can impact one person. And I think if we did that, that's an easy solution where we can all make a difference.
I have a great story about that. So a friend of mine and a colleague, his name's Jeff Hoffman. Jeff started Priceline.com, Booking.com, the kiosk in the airport. Wildly successful guy. And I was at an event and he told a story, and I won't get into it because it's probably confidential, but he saw something on the news, to get to your point. And, everyone always says, well, it would be great if someone did something about it, right? We always say, like, it would be wonderful if someone did something about it. He actually did. He saw what was on the news, okay? And it was something about a homeless shelter that they were closing because they couldn't pay the mortgage, whatever it was. He stepped in, he funded it anonymously. And the lesson is that if you could do something to make a change, don't rely on the government.
Right.
We have to make changes. It was a great lesson. It was an incredible story. He's a wonderful person. And after he told that story, you want to get into everyone you meet, everyone you talk to, experiences, being present, all that. You get something out of that. You learn. You're like, okay, that's a great lesson to learn. And so it's those little things that you do in life. And so if we think that someone magical is out there that's going to rescue us, you're kidding yourself. You have to be your own boss. You have to be your own leader. You have to be your own. And the reason why it's so challenging for people is because of mindset and what's between the ears here is I'm not good enough, or I don't have the ability, or I don't have the resources, I don't have the money. And it's why one thing I enjoy about speaking on stage is I explain to people that you can use leverage, which is more powerful than money, which is our new show. It's about leverage, because you could be dirt poor and you can use leverage of knowledge. I know something that I could teach you, Ben Reinberg, that's going to help me. Time, everything. So there's so many things to help people where if you don't have money, you can help people through knowledge, maybe introductions, resources, and that will allow you to maybe borrow someone's credibility to get in the door somewhere else, to be able to generate the revenue you're looking for to live.
What a bomb. I mean, it's like we all have a value, we all have a talent. It's your job to go figure it out and figure out what problem, how can I help Ben?
Right.
How can I help you?
Yeah, that
was a great lesson.
Right. So for everyone out there is that if you want to create leverage, knowledge is a great way through maybe, technology, this and that. But also helping people will create leverage for you, because people are like, well, how do I get access to this person?
Ben Reinberg. How do I get access to Ben Reinberg?
My favorite access. So I said this in a speech in Orlando. Okay. One of the guys out there on social media had a young kid show up to my office. He was 22 years old. And how he created leverage to get access to me was he said, I want to get into commercial real estate. I work for an associates company here in Newport Beach, blah, blah, blah. And he dropped off a bottle of wine that I really enjoy. I don't drink anymore, but I collect wine. And he knew, he did his research, his homework. It triggered an emotion in me. I'm like, okay, I was 22 once. I'm going to call him. So I called him and I said, let's grab lunch. Next thing you know, he's buying multifamily because of our conversation and setting up a fund. And so that's how you get access to people. You have to do things differently. So for example, in my speech, I say, Ali, anyone can send an email. Anyone can send a text. Anyone can open up a door for someone. But what can you do differently? If you're going to a meeting, can I call you an Uber that you're unexpecting, that you're like, oh, great. What can you do differently? Maybe let's say you don't have money, but you're an expert in digital marketing and you send someone. I've had this a bunch. I think it's really interesting. They always get a look from me. I don't understand that, so it's hard to respond because I don't know if we need it or if they're a legitimate resource. But my favorite thing is I get direct messages. I'm sure you do too, where some kid goes, I've been watching your reels because it makes me think too of how we get better. And he says, I'm going to send you a reel of something I did. And this happened like a week ago. I see this frequently. Brilliant reel. And I sent it to my team. I'm like, this kid knows what he's doing. Like, what's going on? Are we not as creative as him? But guess what? I might pick up the phone and call him if I get his number. I might, and so
you never know.
I don't forget. So you have to do things differently, but you have to give first. And so I always found that, and especially, people are like, I think what happens in life and business is people become very successful and their ego gets in the way.
Right.
And they forget about where they came from, and they forget about that young person, man or woman out there, might change their life, even though they're still wildly successful. And I never forgot that lesson.
Ben, we are lucky. Chicago's loss is California's gain. I will say that. It is, you have to follow Ben Reinberg. We're going to put some of the podcast link. I Own It podcast. It's amazing. You got a new venture coming up. It's a TV show. Ben, that was incredible. Thank you so much for joining us.
Ali, what a pleasure. I really appreciate
it. I had an absolute blast. That was phenomenal. And anytime he comes to San Diego, I will let him. He gets an invite whenever he wants.
Love it.